Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into a genuinely fascinating and honestly a kind of startling scientific mystery. For decades, human beings were getting demonstrably better at cognitive tests. Our scores were climbing year after year, generation after generation. But recently, those scores haven't just stalled, they've suddenly started to plummet. So today we're going to use the data to figure out exactly why human cognitive scores are falling, what it means for you right now, and most importantly, how we can actually turn the whole thing around. Let's dive in.
So let me ask you a really direct question. Do you consider yourself smarter than your parents? What about your grandparents? It's a fun thing to debate at the dinner table, right? But for 50 straight years, the scientific answer to that question was an absolute, measurable yes. Every single generation of humans was scoring higher on intelligence tests than the one right before it. And I don't just mean slightly higher. We were scoring measurably and consistently higher across the board.
This steady upward trajectory is what researchers call the Flynn Effect. Basically, from the 1930s all the way through the 1990s, across every single country that tracked it, human intelligence scores were on this consistent climb. It meant that, on paper, a kid born in 1980 was objectively scoring higher in cognitive science metrics than their parents. For half a century, the Flynn Effect was one of the most reliable, rock-solid findings in all of cognitive science.
But let's follow this timeline for a second, because this is where the story takes a massive turn. We have the steady rise starting in the 1930s, peaking in the 1980s, and then in the 1990s, the growth abruptly slows down. And then we hit 1995, the reversal. Somewhere right around 1995, the line completely stopped rising and actually reversed. Data collected from over 1 million people across 8 different countries confirmed something literally no scientist expected. The scores were falling. And they were falling by amounts so huge that researchers openly described them as alarming.
Section 1. Debunking the genetic myth. When this reversal was confirmed, society naturally scrambled for an explanation.
People initially assumed this was all just genetics, a theory known as the dysgenics hypothesis. Basically, it argued that less educated populations were just having more children. It carried this cold authority of arithmetic, and honestly, it was widely believed. But in 2018, Norwegian researchers shattered that myth completely. They published this monumental study tracking over 700,000 men across 3 decades. They didn't compare different families. They compared brothers. Same parents, same DNA, same house, same dinner table, the exact same environment. The only variable was when each brother came of age. And guess what? The younger brothers scored lower. Think about what that proves. The decline was absolutely not in their DNA. If it was, the younger brother wouldn't be scoring lower than the older brother he shares genes with. It was the environment. Something in the world shifted between when the older brother grew up and when the younger one did.
Which brings us to suspect number 1, the death of boredom.
To understand what shifted, we really have to look at executive function. These are cognitive skills like abstract reasoning, processing speed, and working memory. These skills build up like a muscle through repeated, effortful use. And the primary exercise that builds that muscle? Boredom. It's the mental resistance training of staying with something difficult when an easier option is sitting right there. Reading a long argument, sitting with an unsolved problem, following a thought all the way to the end. Just look at our modern baseline. Back in 2004, the average time a person could stay focused on a single screen without switching was 2.5 minutes. That was our baseline for sustaining attention.
But fast forward to 2023, and researchers tracking over 80,000 people found that this number had plummeted to a shocking 47 seconds. 47 seconds. That is barely enough time to even decide if you like a TikTok video. And look, it is not because people suddenly got inherently dumber. It's because nothing around us requires focus anymore. Every app, every feed, and every platform in our modern attention economy is quite literally engineered to interrupt you. Interruption keeps you scrolling, and scrolling makes money. The business model of the modern internet and the cognitive cost to our working memory are exactly the same thing. That younger Norwegian brother, he grew up in this highly fragmented environment with vastly fewer hours of uninterrupted thought.
Section 3. Hidden dietary and chemical changes. Because our attention span isn't the only thing that changed in our environment.
There were physical decisions made quietly, completely without public notice, that directly impacted our brains over this exact same timeline. We actually have 3 converging forces driving this decline simultaneously. First, the fragmented attention economy we just talked about. Second, a totally silent dietary change. Through most of the 20th century, commercial bread in the US and Europe was made with iodized dough conditioners. Iodine is absolutely crucial for thyroid function, which is directly linked to cognitive development. But in the 1970s and 80s, manufacturers quietly switched to bromine-based alternatives. Iodine deficiency silently returned, bringing measurable cognitive dips right along with it. And third, lead in aviation fuel, which actually ran until 1996, caused measurable cognitive losses for entire birth cohorts living near small airports. So we've got nutrition, chemical exposure, and our fractured attention all converging at once. It's like a perfect storm.
Section 4. The twist. The rise of AI.
Those three suspects are genuinely alarming, but they are honestly just a warm-up for something hiding in the data.
Because the specific skills humans are losing the fastest aren't random. We are losing complex reasoning, working memory, the ability to hold multiple things in our minds at once, and the ability to think fluidly under pressure. These are the hardest skills humanity ever developed. But at the exact same time, artificial intelligence systems are telling a completely different story. These are precisely, specifically, and measurably the exact same skills AI systems have been rapidly acquiring and improving at since 2015. We've been measuring human thought since the 1930s, and AI thought since 2015. One line is going down, and the other line is going way up. Even researchers who note these tests measure slightly different things admit this overlap is no coincidence. The lines are converging.
Section 5. Reversing the cognitive decline. Okay, this is absolutely the most important part of this entire explainer. This decline is not permanent.
I know that previous graph looks terrifying, but because those Norwegian brothers proved the decline is environmental and not genetic, we know for sure the cognitive skills we're losing can be rebuilt. The environment shifted, which means you can shift it back. Executive function works exactly like a muscle. We are the very first generation in history to see this decline happening in real time, which means we have a totally unique window to fix it. We can rebuild our mental muscles by intentionally doing hard things, by sitting with unsolved problems, and by actively resisting the immediate rewards of our distraction economy. The cognitive science points to conditions that are the exact opposite of what modern convenience tells us to do.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. The lines on that graph, they are not fixed. The question is no longer whether average human cognitive scores are currently falling. The data clearly shows they are. The real question is whether you are going to let that line keep going down for you or whether you'll force it back up. Are you going to be part of the answer or part of the trend? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep pushing your focus, and I'll see you next time.